All right. Welcome back to All Cars. I am John. It is time for another Motorweek Retro Review Reaction. This week, I have chosen the 2000 Saturn L Series. The bigger car, the mid-size car that Saturn came out with, and what to me signals the beginning of the end for what is probably my favorite brand. So as always, grab that beverage of choice, sit back in the most comfiest chair you've got, and let's take a little trip down memory lane.
Motorweek is made possible by Lucas Oil, Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper, and TireRack.com.
In 1989, General Motors introduced us to an innovative new car company named Saturn. A company whose unique approach to customer service earned its compact sedans and coupes a tremendously loyal following. But when your product line consists of only compact cars, even the most loyal followers must eventually look elsewhere for their larger vehicle needs. So Saturn has finally introduced its first mid-size cars, the L Series. But is America's friendliest car company tough enough to take on the big boys in the fiercely competitive family car mainstream?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Hindsight is 2020, and I say this as a incredible fan of Saturn and everything they did, that they put all the resources into designing, developing, building a factory, and coming out with the SLs. But you can't really survive if all you have is a Honda Civic competitor. They never had, apparently, the funding or the plan to come up with a bigger one to offer for people to move into. And again, hindsight, they didn't really use a more modular approach where they could have had one platform that was appropriate for a small car and then for a bigger car as well. I have the advantage of looking back in history and also seeing what companies like Volkswagen can do with platforms now. But Saturn trudged along, and they just, I don't think they were paying the bills and paying back the money that had been invested in them, simply selling small cars. Now these, I'll have more to say about it as we go along, but from the styling perspective, they're okay. This is not a Saturn platform, and it shows. And the styling itself, it never really worked for me. By itself, taken in isolation, I think they're kind of good looking. It doesn't even really quite look like an update of the Saturn styling design language. But just looking at this silver one here, I'm like, that's a pretty good looking car. But when it came out, and you saw it in person, or when you saw comparison tests where you had pictures with its primary competitors of like the Honda Accord and the Toyota Camry next to it, to me, the Saturn L Series always looks a little unfinished. Like it was a late prototype and they just put it in production. It doesn't really scream anything to me. It doesn't say youthful, sporty. It doesn't even say, hey, I'm better than the imports. It just is aggressively anonymous, almost. I don't think it's ugly. I just don't think that it really stood out.
It better be, because entering the mid-size family car segment means going up against heavyweights like the Honda Accord, Toyota Camry, and the Ford Taurus. To fight the good fight, the Wilmington, Delaware-built Saturn L Series, that's the LS sedan and LW wagon, got a lot of help from GM Europe. Germany's Opel contributed their new Vectra chassis, stretched to a 106.5-inch wheelbase. The L Series comes wrapped in smooth, if not particularly distinctive, plastic and steel body panels that hit strongly of its Opel heritage. While under the hood, the base engine is an all-new 2.2-liter balanced shaft four-cylinder engine that will soon be used throughout the General Motors global empire. In Saturn trim, it delivers 137 horsepower and 135 pound-feet of torque in an extremely quiet manner. Saturn's first V6 comes from the Opel Omega and also powers the Saab 9.5 and Cadillac Catera. For the LS2, the 3-liter dual overhead cam engine is slightly detuned, delivering 182 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah, and you know what they're saying there is, if you think about that it's another platform, it's a corporate GM engine, it's a corporate GM 6-cylinder engine. Guess what they're probably going to say about the transmission that's coming, right? This is another example of brand engineering by GM. They didn't invest any more in Saturn to say, okay, go develop a mid-size car. They just said, here, we're going to do what we did with Chevy and Oldsmobile and Buick and Cadillac and Pontiac and, for that matter, Saab. Here's a platform, and here's your engines. Go do something with the interior and the exterior styling. And then it wasn't even Saturn that built it. So generally there's I feel a large drop in quality. They really just used Saturn. And I mean that in a negative way, because the distribution had such great customer support and customers loved it. But what they were doing was really just foisting out another General Motors car. This could have been a Chevy Malibu. As far as anybody else was concerned, it was just being sold through Saturn retailers.
The V6 mates only with a 4-speed automatic transmission, while the 2.2 4-cylinder comes standard with a pleasant shifting 5-speed manual. At our test track, a V6-powered LS2 sedan nearly rocketed from 0 to 60 in 7.4 seconds and finished the quarter mile in 15.7 seconds at 89 miles per hour. Power builds uniformly, peaking at around 5,000 RPM. Shifts are refined, if a bit lazy. There is strong reserve power for passing, and overall L-Series acceleration is most impressive for its class. Ditto the handling. Reaction by the front McPherson strut and rear multi-link suspension, also from the Vectra, is quick and stable, though the overall feel is a little soft. The power rack and pinion steering delivers moderate levels of feedback. Out in the real world, the LS2 delivers a fine ride. It's smooth but not mushy. While not quite as European taut as the Oldsmobile Intrigue, it compares well to the Honda Accord. Brakes are 4-wheel disc on our LS2, which stopped it from 60 in an average distance of 124 feet. ABS is optional, and though our car lacked it, good pedal feel helped us control the brake's tendency to lock.
So, good results overall. I mean, good acceleration, looked good through the slalom, and the braking results are fine, not exceptional, but 124 feet, that's not terrible by any stretch. And this one didn't have ABS, and you had one wheel kind of lock up, but it was perfectly controllable down there. It was still straight. Impressive, pretty impressive overall, and they're comparing it favorably with the Honda Accord. Saying that it's a little soft, that makes sense. This is not a sports sedan. It should be a little more compliant, but they're giving it that European feel, I think, is what they're trying to lean into a little bit here. And I want to go back to what I was saying about this just being another GM platform and another GM engine. And I don't have a bad opinion of the platform. I don't have a terrible opinion of the engines and their performance when new. What I have is the focus of GM and the focus of Saturn were different. I believe in my heart that Saturn cared about quality materials, and building a good product that was going to last and stand behind it. I don't feel that way about, well, the rest of GM and what they offer.
Front disc and rear drum brakes are standard on most other models. Of course, the Mini families, accommodations are more important than performance, and the L-Series offers buyers more overall interior room than a Honda Accord. The cabin is wide and airy with a clean, business-like dash and a healthy load of standard features, and large bucket seats that are comfortable for long trips. A pollen filter is standard across the line, as are easy-to-use Saturn-style HVAC controls, while our LS2 sedan carried a standard CD and cassette stereo. Rear seat room is plentiful, easily accommodating tall adults. Plus, the 60-40 split folding design expands the trunk's already healthy 17.5 cubic feet of cargo capacity. For those with greater cargo needs,
Before they go on there to the station wagon, let's roll back here real quick. Well, maybe not that quick. I don't hate it. I just don't love it. It's okay. Obviously, you're going to know one of my comments here is it's dark. Dark seats, dark carpet, dark dashboard, and everything else. But overall, I don't love the dash design. I like the gauges, big, happy gauges, and everything in the middle looks ergonomic. But when Saturn in their SL series redesigned the interior, they redesigned the dash. They did this little like mini keg that held the radio and the HVAC controls and things like that. And here they're trying to do it again, but it looks like a protuberance out of the dash. It once again to me looks a little bit like an early idea that was just never quite refined, never quite sweated the details. At least it is one big piece that's going to reduce your chance of squeaks and things like that. But I don't know why it wasn't back more, why it wasn't more flush. It doesn't look as nice or as refined, or legitimately it doesn't look as upscale as I think what you would have gotten from the Accord or the Camry of the time. It looks comfortable, and I'm sure it's extremely functional. I'm willing to bet I'd be happy with it. I don't have that punch that says, whew, I love it.
and a healthy load of standard features, and large bucket seats that are comfortable for long trips. A pollen filter is standard across the line. For those with greater cargo needs, the LW lineup, GM's only mid-size station wagon, offers 29.4 cubic feet of easy-to-load space with the second seat up and 71.3 cubic feet with it folded flat. The rear seat is also split 60-40, but a reinforcing bar attached to the seat back while out of the way when fully folded limits cargo height in split configuration. But that's one of the few complaints that we have about the new Saturn L Series. This is a car designed with the comfort, room, versatility, and performance that midsize family car buyers demand. And at prices...
Well, and hold on a minute. A reinforcing bar at basically luggage height in a station wagon. I like the interior there. I like that tan. That's a really good usable space. For the cargo area itself, I like that a little bit better than, say, I would like the Taurus. But that brace where I could not slide in a nightstand, a vanity, or other thing, that would have been a deal killer for me. And it strikes me as Saturn had a wagon on the SL series, on the smaller cars. Did Saturn insist on making this into a wagon when it was never intended to be a wagon all along? That's why it doesn't have provisions for the bracing to go up and across the roof. They just had to put it right here. From just a wagon perspective, that would take it off my list. If I ever thought I was going to need to carry something that was, taller than this. That's really disappointing, honestly. That's very much not sweating the details.
They can afford. The base LS sedan starts at only $15,450. The LS1 at $17,190, while V6 powered LS2 models start at $20,575. Wagons carry base prices of $19,275 for the 4-cylinder LW1 and $21,800 for the LW2 with the V6. We expect the Saturn L Series to give established midsize family car lines a real run for their money. In our opinion, you can't get a better family car for less. And it shows everyone that America's friendliest car company now has some real teeth behind the smile.
That's interesting, saying that you can't get a better one for the price. Most of the reviews that I remember reading when they did comparisons and included the LS was fine, right? That it was thoroughly competitive but in no way did it really exceed what Honda and Toyota, for example, were offering. And certainly if you think about, the Camry with its impeccable reliability, when you think about the Accord, which I'm of course a huge fan of and believe in their reliability and a little bit more zippiness to it, think about the Passat and a solid Germanic feeling car. The question here is, why would you buy this? Now, this was very positive, and I'm kind of surprised it's that positive. And certainly the acceleration, the handling, what they said about the ride, thoroughly modern, thoroughly competitive. They even noted how quiet one of the engines was, right? But as a whole, I'm going to stand by this. To me, always just, it never felt like it was finished, and it never felt like a Saturn at all. It didn't necessarily feel like a Chevy, but it didn't feel like a Saturn. I didn't like them in person. I didn't like how they looked in person. And overall, what really frustrates me about this is that, again, General Motors didn't, and I can't blame them, right? The company's burning through cash, and they're 8 years away from being canceled at this point. They didn't want to go take another $2 billion, $3 billion, and tell Saturn to go develop a new platform to compete against the Camry and the Accord. That is a huge gamble against two very, very good competitors. So instead, they just dug around in their parts bin and were like, all right, here's a new platform, and here's two new engines, and we're going to build it somewhere else. Just sell it. And that decision began to unleash a torrent. Once they made the decision to just use other GM engines and transmissions and platforms and build them at other GM factories, it became just another brand. And for most people who don't follow it like you and I would, I don't know they'd really know that. I don't think they'd really care. But this excellent reputation that Saturn had slowly started to erode, because now you had just your standard GM engine and all the problems that come around with a company that's focused on nothing but profit per part versus doing right by the customer. And this car, this decision, whoever made it and broke the dam of General Motors being able to push new platforms onto Saturn, it started to become a torrent after that. I exaggerate slightly, but the midsize sedan was just another GM platform. Then they got the View. They got a version of the Pontiac Solstice. They got a minivan. And it was just another brand under the GM umbrella. And even the smaller cars, the SLs, were replaced with the Ion, which was just another GM small car with styling touches. They had a little bit of flexibility, but they just became a marketing name. And it breaks my heart, because this is the beginning of the end. And in the chase for incremental sales, which again, I can't blame them wanting profitability out of their investment here, they destroyed the entire brand. Let me know what you think below, guys. Thanks for being here.